Okay, we are live.
Yeah, exactly. There all day, but I went from town hall down to the speaking of Burnsville, 45 seconds. Really? Yeah, I mean. 30 weeks. Not always like it.
Oh, no, I might be on your hands for now. Oh.
All right, everybody, it's 6 o'clock. I think we're ready to go. We're live. So I will call this meeting to order, the board meeting September 20th of 2023, the CRTPO board meeting. All right, Mr. Burke, I understand we have a quorum.
We do.
Okay, very good. All right, next motion up is the adoption of tonight's agenda. Any requested changes or motion to accept tonight's agenda as published? The motion?
Motion to accept.
Second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, unanimous all the way around. Thank you. All right, I understand there's no public comments tonight, so we're going to drop down to Mr. Neal again and talk about ethics awareness.
In accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, it is the duty of every board member to avoid conflict of interest. Does any board member have any known conflict of interest with respect to any of the matters coming before the board today? If so, please identify the conflict and refrain from any participation in the particular matter involved.
No hands raised, so that's a good thing. So thank you, Neil. Appreciate that. All right, we're going to move to the consent agenda. So can I have a motion on that, please? All right, second. All right. All right, all in favor? All right, unanimous all the way around. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to jump down real quick to Miss Jennifer. You're going to bounce up there. This is the discretionary grants program policy guide revision. So the floor is yours. If you can get up close to that mic and speak.
Good
Clearly.
evening. Thank you for having me today. So I'm representing the Project Oversight Committee. Your TCC reps are recommending the following changes. So tonight, last month, we came with information. Tonight, we're asking for actually action to approve revisions to the discretionary grants program policy guide. Again, the policy is used to prioritize and program all the discretionary funds that are available to us. It was adopted in 2019 with a small revision in 2020. So this is the next set of revisions. There are 9 revisions. The Project Oversight Committee took about 7 meetings to develop these. A lot of thought went into it. We worked with Mecklenburg County Health and Air Quality as well. And I just wanted to remind everybody that the Project Oversight Committee will review the scores and the effect of any new scoring criteria. So if there's any adjustments that need to be made, we'll discuss that in the meeting and come back with any changes or recommended lists with that. So we are watching all of these revisions closely. So there again are 9 revisions. The first one just it changes the maximum funding, how it's calculated. So 25% per project of the available funding per mode is the most you can request during a call for projects. So for example, 62 million is available right now. So your largest project could be a roadway for 12 million or a bike ped at 3 million. We are proposing, or the Project Oversight Committee is proposing adding 10% of contingency on construction, adding inflation to the estimates that will be discussed each year at the Project Oversight Committee level. And then capping the shortfall awards for projects starting this year, projects that are awarded this year. In the future, if they come back for a shortfall, they'll be capped at 3 million or 100% of the original amount. This does not apply to projects that have already been awarded. We didn't want to stop that in the middle of the process. Clarifying the project readiness on funding request. It had previously been on the phase completed, but we programmed far out. So this really just makes a lot more sense. It's just a little bit of clarifying. We developed again with Mecklenburg Air Quality methodology ranking for CMAQ and carbon reduction funds. And then there was some administrative updates that I just wanted to include in there, changing phone numbers, stuff like that. And then for the highway score, so here's the scoring revisions, increasing safety points on highway projects from 10 to 15. That just, I'll show you all of the points in just a moment, and it just kind of levels that out and gives a little bit more of a bump for safety. Adding crash reduction and equity scoring, again, up to 10 points. So you have availability to add some design features to help reduce crashes, something that's proactive. Everybody can get up to 6 points if they choose to add this to the designs. And then 4 points for NCDOTs using NCDOT's Transportation Disadvantage Index. This is a map location, and it's just meant to help support equity in historically disadvantaged areas. So in December and January, I put together a master scoring handout that you'll see first go to your TCC reps and then eventually will go to you. This is just the headline of the highway with the new projects, and I just wanted to show you what it will look like when it comes out. We've been using the same form, I think, since 2019. So you'll see the max amount of points that are available, and I just wanted to show you that we'll break this out so it's very transparent on who is getting which points. And again, I just want to emphasize that the Project Oversight Committee will also be looking at this. So with that, I'll take any questions if you have any.
All right, any questions for our presenter tonight? We've seen these before, so thanks for that update. No questions I see around there. All right, Jennifer, thank you very much.
Yep, so if we could get request the action
the
to
action, I'm
approve the
sorry.
revisions to
I
the,
thought I was looking at the wrong one. All right, so we are looking for a motion on
Yep,
this.
we
All
sure
right,
are.
I'm
Thank
sorry about that. All right, so motion from somebody,
So moved.
second? All right, all in favor? Thanks. All right,
thank you.
now you can go. How's that? Thank you. All right, Judy, you get to jump up. I know we get involved in our work here. This is on the CRTPO orientation, so some updates on that. This is an information one.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm Judy Deller, our Public Information Officer with CRTPO. And so a few days ago, you all should have gotten a memo that looks like this in your email. So I'm hoping you had a few minutes to take a look at that in advance. We have our our biennial orientation coming up in January. And there's, of course, a whole list of topics that we're required to present and share. But there's other things that are, more specific to our planning area. And so that's what that memo was about that you all received in the email. And at your desk today, there's a sheet that looks like this. And if while you're here tonight, if you could fill that out for us, we want you to pick 5 options of the different topics listed on here. See, I got it. There's the first 2 on the screen there. So we want to get your input on what would be some of the extra topics that you want us to cover during orientation. So everybody has a pen and one of these cards here. So if you'll pick your top 5, and if there's something that's not on here that you feel like it would be beneficial for the whole group to know more about it, there's room on the back where you can fill out and add a couple more items down there if you want. At the end of the meeting tonight, when we come and pick up your tent cards and everything, we'll pick up the sheet of yours right from your seat. And if you have any questions, I'll answer any questions, but we do want you to take a few minutes to fill this out to help us to have the agenda that's really best suited for all of your needs when we have orientation in January.
Hey, if we can, you want to take just a couple of minutes, sir? Take about 3, 4, 5 minutes.
That'd be great.
We'll pause.
Okay.
All right, does anybody need any more time on this one at all? Get it in there? All right, we're good. All right, we'll move on. Judy, you can come
So-
around and
And I just
collect
wanted to add, next step, so I will pick those cards up tonight from you. And you'll be getting an email from Neil tomorrow with a doodle poll with potential dates for our orientation in January. And so when you get that email, if you could just fill that poll out for us, so we can also pick the best date that works for everybody.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next up, planning area boundary adoption. This is information. Mr. Cook, you're up.
Good evening, everyone. I want to talk about, of course, our planning area boundary. I'll provide a little bit of background information about what we're talking about tonight, discuss the staff recommendation on this topic, talk about future action, and then get into any questions the board might have. We are governed by a series of all MPOs, not just CRTPO, governed by a series of recommendations in the Code of Federal Regulations, and you can see the citation there. You don't need to know this, but because that's why we're here to help you with these things. But there is a specific requirement in the code, and you see it quoted there. The MPO shall review the metropolitan planning area boundaries after each census to determine if existing boundaries meet the minimum statutory requirements and adjust them as necessary. So that's what this is all about, fulfilling that statutory requirement in the code. And so there is future action needed on this, and this will be for you to adopt a resolution to confirm the boundary. So just to provide a little bit more information in terms of background, at a minimum, MPO boundaries must contain the entirety of the census designated urban area for that community. And as you might recall from presentations earlier this year, the 2020 census urban area changed rather substantially from the 2010 urban area. The Charlotte, North Carolina, South Carolina urban area contracted by 109 square miles. So that's a pretty significant contraction. And that was due to the changes in the way the Census Bureau designates urban areas. And so the relevant changes were in Northern Iredell County and in Union County. And in both those instances, two communities, Statesville and Marshville, are no longer within the urban area. And then in Western Mecklenburg County, there was an area assigned to the Gastonia urban area. That's roughly the area of the Whitewater Center along the Catawba River. And then in Eastern Mecklenburg County, there were some areas assigned to the Concord urban area. And just to make this a little bit more visible to you, two maps here. On the left is the 2010 urban area in the purple cross hatching. And then on the right is the 2020 urban area. And you can see that's in green, but also there is the 2010 urban area. And so you can see on the fringes up on the north, Statesville no longer in the urban area. And then parts of York County and Lancaster County in South Carolina are no longer in the Charlotte, North Carolina, South Carolina urban area. In Union County, you can see it contracted to the point that Marshville is no longer in the urban area. And then along the boundary between Cabarrus and Mecklenburg County, some areas that had been in the Charlotte urban area are now in the Concord urban area. So those are the changes resulting from the census. There's also an area in Lincoln County that had been in the Charlotte urban area as well. That was always under the authority of the Gaston, Cleveland, Lincoln MPO. And so this map shows the urban area as well as our planning area boundary. And that's the blue outline, taking in all of Iredell County, all of Mecklenburg County, and most of Union County. And so our staff recommendation is, after reviewing the current boundary, we don't find any reason to make any changes to it. There are only two basic reasons for that. One is that we are meeting that statutory minimum that the entirety of the urban area be included within the planning area boundary. And then Statesville and Marshville have both elected to remain active members of this organization. So for those reasons, we find that the current boundary is adequate and should remain unchanged. So in terms of the future action, again, you do need to adopt a resolution confirming the planning area boundary if you so choose to do so. We are expecting a TCC recommendation to the board in October. And then if unless there are objections, we could put this on next month's consent agenda. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions around the room? All right. None seen, so we'll move down to the next item. Mr. Cook, you're up again. If you could get a little closer to that mic.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Now, this is a somewhat different situation, but also involving our urban area. So there are some overlaps here. And again, I'll provide a little bit of background, talk about the future action, our recommendation for what to do when it comes time to actually make a decision, talk a little bit about status and schedule, and then of course, answer any questions you might have. So very similar to the last item, this is coming out of the Code of Federal Regulations, slightly different citation here. Where part of an urban area served by one MPO extends into the adjacent metropolitan planning area, the MPO shall, at a minimum, establish written agreements that clearly identify areas of coordination and the division of responsibilities among and between the MPOs. And so the action that we will be asking you to take at some point in the future is to execute agreements between the MPOs to transfer planning responsibilities. And so there are 4 situations involved here, and there was a map, by the way, in your agenda packet and with a memo, which hopefully made this a little slightly clearer than for what you learned or what you knew in the previous to that. But there are 4 situations involved. And the first one is where the Charlotte urban area extends into the Rock Hill Fort Mill area transportation study, the MPO for Rock Hill. And then another one where the Charlotte urban area extends into the Gaston, Cleveland, Lincoln planning area, MPO planning area. And then one where Gastonia's urban area extends into CRTPO's planning area, and the same thing with the situation with Concord's urban area. And the map hopefully will show this. I know this can be a little difficult to read, but you do have the map in your agenda packet as well. What this map is depicting are the 4 MPOs in the area. It also shows the Hickory MPO up to the upper left, but that is not a factor in our discussion tonight. In the center is in the dark blue is the Charlotte urban area, and that lighter blue is the CRTPO planning area. To the right is in red is the Concord urban area, and then that tannish color is the Cabarrus-Rowan MPO planning area. To our west is the Gastonia urban area in that darker brown, and then that lighter brown is the entirety of the Gaston, Cleveland, Lincoln MPO planning area. And then lastly, to the south in that gray color is the Rock Hill urban area, and then the lighter shade of gray is the planning area for the Rock Hill MPO. And then there are the yellows, and those are the areas where there is the overlap between urban areas and planning areas. And so you can see starting on the west side, that larger yellow area between Gastonia and Charlotte, that's where the Gastonia urban area extends into Mecklenburg County. Just north of that is the opposite, where the Charlotte urban area extends into Gaston County. And then on the east side, along the boundary between Mecklenburg and Cabarrus counties, those are areas where the Concord urban area extends to Mecklenburg. And last but not least, to the south, that rather large yellow area is in York County, and that's where the Charlotte urban area extends into York County. So those are the areas that are affected and that require these agreements between the 4 MPOs. And since there's a lot of information here, I'll just pause for a moment to see if anyone has any questions or needs me to clarify anything.
John.
Yeah, quick question. Why are the urban areas and the planning areas different? Why aren't they in lockstep? It just seems kind of.
The urban areas are established by the Census Bureau for their statistical purposes only. And so they establish them for those reasons. And then other agencies, other parts of the federal government, state government, I think even local government use urban areas for various reasons. And in this case, the Federal Highway Administration says you start with urban areas as your most basic geography for an MPO. And then for transportation planning purposes, an urban area probably doesn't make sense for a comprehensive transportation planning process. Just looking at the Charlotte urban area, and you can see how scattered it is, particularly outside the city of Charlotte, as you're heading north into northern Mecklenburg County and Iredell County. It wouldn't make sense to conduct that transportation planning process for just that dark blue area and leave the other areas outside.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before we'll proceed?
So our recommendation is to execute agreements with the neighboring MPOs to transfer planning area responsibilities for those portions of the Charlotte urban area that are located within the planning areas of the Rock Hill MPO and the Gaston Cleveland Lincoln MPO. And then also to transfer planning area responsibilities for portions of the Gastonia and Charlotte urban areas to CRTPO. And this, by the way, is consistent with past practice. We had to do this following the 2010 census, the 2000 census, I believe, as well, perhaps the 1990 census. I'm not sure about that, but the last two iterations of the census, we had to do that, and this board approved planning these agreements with the adjacent MPOs. So in terms of status and schedule, we've had a draft template that was reviewed and updated by the city attorney's office, providing that support for us. Transit text has been reviewed by the CRTPO transit planner, Jarrell Leonard, as well as CAT staff. There's an air quality component to the agreement. And by the way, there's an example agreement in your agenda packet, the one with the Rock Hill MPO. There was air quality text that was reviewed by NCDOT's Transportation Planning Division. And so we are currently preparing agreements with the neighboring MPOs, and the final resolution on this is still to be determined. There are some issues with the Rock Hill agreement related to transit funding. I think the Cabarrus, Rowan, and Gaston Cleveland Lincoln agreements will be much less complex. But I'm hesitant to put a date on when we'll get all those done. We'd like to bring these back to you as a package and not a sort of a drip approach to make it a little bit easier on everybody. I'd like to think we could get this wrapped up by the November meetings, TCC and this board. We'll see how we go with that. And with that, happy to answer any questions. I'm sure that was as clear as mud.
That was going to be one of my questions on the timing. Is there a mandate on the timing?
Loretta, is there a mandate?
Before the next NTP update, so it would be before Rock Hill's NTP update, it's here before you.
Right. Before they have to complete that, which would be in 2025, right? Okay,
This is 26.
yes. Mhm.
Thank you on that. All right, any questions for Mr. Cook? All right, you get off easy tonight. Appreciate that. A lot of information, a lot of work, and thanks for getting out ahead of it. 2025, that's getting out ahead. That's a good thing. All right, Mr. Bryan, you're up, the strategic plan update. So talk to us loud and clear.
Absolutely. Good evening. So back at the beginning of this year, I was put in sort of lead of implementing the CRTPO strategic plan. And so the presentation tonight is just to give you guys a little bit of an update on everything we've done so far. So as some background, the strategic plan was adopted by this board back in November of 2021. It established the CRTPO's mission statement, which is that we will provide leadership and collaboration with our member communities and partners in developing our region's transportation system, as well as the CRTPO's vision, which is a connected and equitable transportation system that provides mobility choices for the region. So there were 6 goals identified in the strategic plan, which you can see up on the screen now. They encompass leadership, communication, collaboration, membership, operations, and funding. We started our implementation efforts with goal 6, funding, specifically expanding regional transportation funding, because we know everyone wants to get their projects funded. And then earlier this year, we also began work on implementing goal 1, leadership. And so I'll dive a little bit into the strategies and implementation efforts for each of those. So for goal 1, strategy A is about providing ongoing education about the CRTPO to our members and partners. Largely, we have been doing this through our education session programming. We've had two separate presentations on the discretionary grants program from Jennifer Stafford. Last year, she conducted a presentation to the CRTPO board, and then this year to transportation staff. We also heard from the Metrolina regional model in May, which was again a presentation to transportation staff. And certainly the 2024 orientation sort of falls under this strategy. Strategy B is about identifying resource needs to pursue additional multimodal planning approaches and studies. Staff is currently developing what we are calling the Regional Transportation Planning Program. We've conducted several peer MPO interviews, and we have met with some staff from some of your jurisdictions to hear about what your needs are and how we can best help you guys with that. Strategy D is about engaging with the North Carolina Association of MPOs as well as the National Association of MPOs. CRTPO staff has conducted or participated in 13 presentations between last year's AMPO National Conference and then last year and this year's NACAMPO conferences. And our Deputy Director, Neil Burke, has served as NACAMPO's Vice President since 2019. Strategy A for Goal 6 is about championing efforts to find funding to support the recommendations resulting from Connect Beyond as well as the Beyond 77 initiatives. The Beyond 77 task force kicked off last year, and we held implementer meetings in August. And CRTPO staff continues to support the Connect Beyond Advancing the Plan Committee. Strategy B is about educating members on how to identify, pursue, and write grants. Back in, I believe it was April, we did a survey of transportation staff just to learn a little bit about how your jurisdictions currently look at and apply for grants. We've done some presentations on Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act grant programs. We conducted a presentation to the Lake Norman Transportation Commission, and we are currently working on assembling a database of grant opportunities. We are starting with federal programs such as those created by IIJA. And we will be putting that onto a dedicated web page that will be on the CRTPO's website that has all these different grant opportunities with links to the notices of funding opportunity as well as the grant programs. We also are working on creating some additional supporting resources for that. Strategy D is about partnering with Central Atlanta Regional Council and regional MPO partners to identify funding opportunities. And recently we had our joint MPO roundtable with the Gaston Cleveland Lincoln MPO, which was facilitated by Central Atlanta. And the focus of that was about regional funding. And yeah, so next steps, we are obviously continuing the implementation of goals 1 and 6. There were some strategies you may have noticed that were skipped. Those are longer term strategies that haven't started yet. But we will begin implementation of goal 5 here soon, which is about improving the CRTPO's internal operations. Yeah, and I will take any questions you might have.
All right, any questions around the table? When we talk about implementation of some of these initiatives, Mr. Burke and I were able to present at Transportation Summit on September 11th, and it was surprising how many people in the room out of maybe 300-400 people didn't even know CRTPO existed. Very revealing. So they do now out there. So we had a good opportunity to address everybody there. We had some Q&A after, and it worked out very well. So we are executing the plan. Great. Any questions for Mr. Bryan? Lee?
Take the opportunities to brought it up. Thank you both for your representation at that summit. You did a great job. It's a very important subject. It's sort of a master's class. That whole summit is. So thank you.
I appreciate that. It was great to be there, and it was great to, again, have it recognized that we actually do exist and all the work that we're doing. So we went, it was a quick slideshow. We were about 40 minutes behind our schedule, but we crammed it in anyway. And so it worked out really well. So for those who were there, it was great to have you there seeing us. And there was a lot of good information at that summit. So appreciate that. All right, if there's no further questions, Brian, thank you very much. All right, going to drop down to next speakers, Mr. Jason, and Connect Beyond update.
Thank you. Good evening. Jason Wager, I'm the Regional Planning Director at Central Honor Regional Council. And really wanted to just take a few minutes to provide an informational update on the Connect Beyond Regional Mobility Initiative and some of the things that are going on. So speaking of the summit, another topic that was also discussed last week quite a bit. So really wanted to take just a couple minutes as a refresher about what the initiative, how it got its start and some of that background, and then really jump into some of the implementation activities. We're seeing that this is a good point in time after some efforts have gone into the last year of moving from planning to implementation to hear a little bit more about those things. Want to thank also Bob Cook, sits on our project management team for Connect Beyond, dutifully has attended weekly meetings for now a couple of years. So it's been quite the dedication and involvement, as well as several partners around the room and around the region at our MPOs that have really made sure that the funding and the distribution of information and connection with folks is all happening. So wanted to mention that. The other item too is this really goes back, I think, longer than people realize, 5+ years in partnership with CATS, Charlotte Area Transit System, talked about just doing a listening series and did that back in 2017 and heard from around the region about the need to better come together in terms of coordinated deployment of mobility and planning, and ultimately going after those funds and all the things that go into doing the things that we're talking about here tonight. Had the series that led to really this first ever vision for our region. So that's where Connect Beyond came from. And you know, we all know this, but mobility, the movement of people, impacts all of us in so many ways, whether it be for your job, maybe it's someone that doesn't have the ability to drive on their own to get to medical trips, educational access, you name it. There are impacts for mobility in so many ways, and you can see some of those here. And out of the discussion and work from Connect Beyond, this was the first and only in-person meeting that we had for the Connect Beyond Planning Initiative out at the airport. You can see several folks in this room in the picture. This kicked off the effort, and about 18 months ensued. And it was a lot of work, a lot of good discussion, a lot of input. We figured out in a hurry how to work through Zoom and do those virtual meetings, but ultimately came out with these 5 mobility moves that you see here. I really like to share these because a lot of folks, when they think of public transportation and investment in mobility, they jump to the far right, those investment in strategic mobility corridors. And while those are very much what we'll see in the news, it's all those other efforts and initiatives going on in our communities that come together to make for this environment that will allow us to see the implementation occur. And it's important that we take a moment to recognize that, because we're not all large cities. We have rural, suburban, a lot of different settings around our region. One of our more immediate impact, we believe higher impact and immediate action items, is transportation demand management, TDM. And wanted to mention this because it's something that we heard loud and clear right out of the gate from the planning effort, that we need a truly regional effort across the project planning area that we were talking about. And in this case, working with our partners at NCDOT, have gotten the support from a consulting team that is doing the work to look at peer regions and all the various realities of setting up such a program. And I'll talk in a minute about, well, what does this program get you and for the folks on the ground. So some of the things that are going on from that, I mentioned best practices, these hotspots, identification, analysis, and even some engagement coming up with all the transportation planning organization staff next week. But a lot of planning work so that we can end next summer with the launching of a program for the region. So what is it? You can see some of the high points here, but it's really influencing everyday travel choices, making sure that we're aware of them in the first place, ensuring that the connections, interconnections, and information is clear, available to everyone in all kinds of ways. And probably really, again, important to a regional council that has members in very rural, very suburban, and large cities, that there's something in it for everyone. This can really be tailored, and I think I've got a slide here that talks to that in just a second. And it's something that is a fairly low impact or low cost, low infrastructure investment yet it will extend and expand that transportation network. So I really like this slide because for me, it helps explain, it's just this combination of options plus the tools, you get to the outcomes. So you put those together, the outcomes, everything from maybe reduced driving needs, reduced travel times, savings for commuters, can help businesses in terms of getting employees to their sites, through everything from van pools to you name it, coordinating those trips. It can ultimately and help free up capacity for other things like freight movement. Some of those strategies, like I mentioned, some of the things on one part of the list may not mean a thing to other parts of our region. So that's why we like to point some of these things out. This does not all have to be, the big investments that you might see or think of. This could be everything from folks in Rowan County getting to an Amazon warehouse in Cabarrus County. And how do we make sure that they all have a coordinated way to do that and get there every day and ultimately save themselves money and ensure access to employees. You can see several other examples, won't go through all of those, but a little bit for everybody. I mentioned the time frame. The key takeaway next summer, would like to have a program that is really ready to get launched. I do believe that first year will be test driving and working out the kinks, figuring out what folks need, creating those collateral materials and so forth, but certainly getting ramped up and hopefully making an impact real quick. Shifting to another topic, we're calling this seamless connections. It's just like it sounds. We have also heard another kind of low-hanging fruit item is how do we ensure, and we've got several of the folks here tonight you'll hear from around with transit agencies around our region. With over 17 transit agencies as part of the Connect Beyond project planning area, how do we ensure that when you're scheduling, maybe if there are fares involved, as you're crossing those jurisdictional boundaries that the average person that's traveling doesn't know about or care about, how do you take that out of the mix and just help them get to where they're going? And so the seamless connections concept is really about going after some of those earlier and easier wins there. And I say easy, it's all relative. There's still going to be a lot of work to coordinate across agencies and make sure that everybody gets what they need and their interests are met. But to start with, we're working with CATS, who's submitted officially to NCDOT on a concept grant, it's as referred to, and really appreciate all the coordination from our partners at NCDOT on this. We think this will allow us to pilot a couple of examples. You see the reference to some training sessions around Remix. It's a planning software that's used in the transit industry that hopefully can be ramped up and shared across agencies, making all the things we just mentioned a little bit easier. And next item, one other big one. This came up last week at the summit that was referenced. The Advancing the Plan Committee, I think Brian also referenced it in his mention of the strategic planning for the NPO here. The Advancing the Plan Committee has been meeting this year. Several of you in the room have been participants, appreciate that. Fourth meeting was held July 28th. We've actually had, as you can see there at the bottom, a roundtable with a couple peer regions on September 8th. That was a great discussion with folks from the Atlanta area and the Bay Area in California. And then our next meeting is actually this Friday. So really, it's intended to be that work that takes us from some of the more, staff level, practical, tactical activities that I talked about to those big sticky items around governance, funding. How do we work together, get all the good parts of working together while still honoring the local autonomy that's we've heard loud and clear through the process is important to retain. And so this is really geared at that discussion. And I mentioned too, I should mention here, the picture, we've got co-chairs, Mayor from City of Kannapolis and Mayor Lyles here from Charlotte, and really do a great job to play off each other, share those different perspectives that we see across the region. Also wanted to mention, and I now can say this is a multi-award winning effort, this transportation guide. I guess another award was I heard about this week from the National Association of Development Organizations. But this transportation guide for older adults and people with disabilities, you can see the link, you can go there, access it both in Spanish and English, but it is being used. We're hearing more and more, and certainly being looked at nationally as a good resource for folks that need to get around. So we're excited about that. Another resource that can help get information out. So with that, one other couple quick hitters, but going after those funds to keep the implementation going. So one is this the Regional Infrastructure Accelerator Grant through the Build America Bureau. You can see that on the left. It's really about developing capacity locally, regionally, and getting ourselves to a place where we can, quote unquote, this is the term I heard last year at AMPO, the MPO conference, federalized projects. So those bigger projects that are really large lifts, bigger money to do bigger things. What do we need to do to get that in place, to go after the financing and so forth? This is an initial investment to help us get that accelerator, as it's called, set up, and all of us able to access that, build that capacity here in the region. And so that will include some activities that support that. Also did want to mention, and actually I didn't even get a chance to put it on the slides, it was announced today, the other grant here, the EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. Don't let that long name fool you. This is really funding that will help us do some planning efforts in the region, that anyone who's got projects that is anything related to helping reduce greenhouse gas emissions, hint, hint, transportation, let us know. Those ideas can be included in the planning effort. We'll have a preliminary plan due March 1st of next year. And anything in that preliminary plan is eligible to be gone after what was announced today, which are competitive funds in the billions. And that's where the real value becomes something for each of you to think about. So what are those projects you are already going to do? They happen to have maybe some impacts in this arena around climate, greenhouse gas emissions. Let's hear about those. We'll be reaching out for more to get folks involved, but we want to definitely hear from everyone, get those ideas in place so that each community that has an interest can go after the bigger money that was announced today. This is a 4-year project in terms of the planning piece, but the big takeaway is the associated implementation funding. And then it's been mentioned, but some of the discretionary funds appreciated that we've received through CRTPO. We hope to get that going here real soon, the linking transit and land use at the community scale training series. So that's it. Thank you. Appreciate the extra time to talk about that. Just a few of the things going on. I think it's pretty exciting to see us go from planning talk to doing, and it's a really neat time to be doing what we do. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Jason?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason, the Advancing the Plan Committee has been talking, I think, about governance in particular. Do you know at all what they're considering there? I mean, do we have any idea what sort of issues or solutions? And also, I heard they hope to be done by the end of the year, but what is the timetable for that work?
Yeah, so the initial commitment and request of the group, to answer your last question first, was a 6-meeting commitment throughout this year. And turns out we added that roundtable I mentioned September 8th, just to hear from some other regions. It's looking like we might try to squeeze a couple more meetings in before the end of the year. I liken, instead of the word done, I liken it more to the jumping off point. What are we going to need to get into next? What are those next big, tough issues? And that's what we would hope to define out of this work. To that, this very next meeting, Friday, is all about a lot of what we're talking about just among staff. This is like getting the facts out there about the various mechanisms, from simple interlocal agreements, something we can all do now, ramped on up to existing legislation, to possibly new legislation, or even amending existing legislation and all those variations, and what those pathways offer in terms of the funding that could be accessed, and or would need some additional action from the legislature. So it's starting to kind of overlay, we're trying to build the foundation, if you will, piece by piece, overlay the funding conversation with the governance options. And I know I've been at a couple different meetings in the last month where it's one of those things where we're all come from different places. So getting shared knowledge, number one, but making sure we don't move so fast that we're complicating or confusing the governance choices with the funding that's possible with each of those. So really trying to build that information out. And I think this Friday we'll do a good job of at least setting the facts out for folks.
So I mentioned that just because I'm watching that progress in the context of our goal of being able to offer a referendum in November, and backing up from there to the General Assembly and all the things that need to happen. So I guess we just need to make sure we're in step. The other thing was Build America Bureau. Did you talk to their people yourself, or do you know?
I did.
So did you speak to Mortiza Faragian or Roger Bonard, or?
I spoke with the gentleman that oversees the kind of day-to-day, the project manager for the grants. He oversees the grant.
Was he a technical assistance guy?
That's
Have a
good
technical
question.
assistance group. I just bring this up because we spoke to the other two, and they urged us to kind of work with their technical assistance people to facilitate access to the funding they can offer. And basically they were talking as if they had a little more money than they really knew what to do with. And so bring us projects. I just recommend to you that if you look up their technical assistance effort and connect, those guys might well show you a path towards access to the money. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, any questions? Any others around? Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Jason, thank you very much. That's a lot of work, and meeting is Friday morning, right? Well, gonna be there.
Chair, I'll
Yes.
just add, as I sort of on the- thank you very much for all y'all do. And I think that all the people who are around that table are highly motivated to try to arrive at a regional transit model that everyone can agree on. You know, and it's kind of coming down to how much local control versus how much centralized control, and finding that sweet spot so that we can induce buy-in from all of our partners. And assure people that they will retain enough authority over anything they agree to join is kind of, it's the question, and that's what we're working on. And I certainly am highly motivated, and I think everybody gets it, because we all know that we need to ensure that this region gets these billions of dollars in federal funds to build out our transit system. We don't want that just going to other communities while we sit around and talk in circles. So highly motivated. And if anyone wants to talk offline, I would be glad to.
That's a great comment, because I think in the room, we have a great mindset going forward, and it is very, very positive. And I think that it's probably its time. So I appreciate that. Appreciate that comment. Tony?
I'll just echo those comments. I'm on that. Planning committee as well.
How many in this room are on that committee looking around? Myself. All the way around, so it's gonna take that collaboration. And I think the mindset is there to do it, so appreciate it. And Jason, thanks for bringing us up to date on that again. All right, we're gonna go to Jarrell. We've got some 5307 Transit Agency annual reports. Show me the money.
To continue the conversation around regional transportation, particularly public transit, let's talk about the FTA or Federal Transit Administration Section 5307 Annual Transit Report. So FTA Section 5307 is a program that is mainly around planning, engineering, design, evaluation for transit projects or anything that's like a study, such as Connect Beyond. Capital investments such as overhauling fleet, overhauling and repairing and building new transit facilities, also compliance with ADA, as well as paratransit services, operating assistance eligible for operators, particularly less than 100 buses. So in July of 2021, this board adopted a new Section 5307 formula for distribution of said program funds. And a memorandum of understanding came from a recommendation offered by the Transit Education Initiative Task Force, which was called by a previous chair and adopted into that MOU. Paragraph 8 of the MOU calls for such, as you see on your screen and below. But the importance of this annual report is to inform, also provide an account of all 5307 transportation related or funded activities from the prior year. So the first entity I'm going to call up will be Union County Transportation, and I believe Teresa Torres will be our presenter. Teresa.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Teresa Torres. I'm from Union County Transportation. I am the director. I want to go into a little background. You see a lot of red and unobligated funds on the screen. It is not because we don't need them or want them. So Union County Transportation we're a demand response. We have 24 vehicles in our fleet. We do about 350 trips a day. We started receiving 5307 funds in 2018. In 2021, DOT advised us that we would become direct recipients, and we had to apply to the FTA to do that. In February of 2022, we started our application process with the FTA. During that application process, we could not apply for any of the funds that are in red on the board. So we had to wait. We went through our FY20 funds. We have spent those that are unobligated. In May of 2023, we received a letter from the FTA that welcomed us aboard as direct recipients. So we will start spending that, applying for those dollars and spending that money. But we had to wait for all of that to happen. We have 3 years of federal fiscal dollars that are available, and we have ARP and CRISA funds that are also available to us. We will use these funds for operating assistance to do safety and security on our vehicles and our transportation facility and other capital items. Any questions?
Very simple. Lee.
First slide, do I understand you say that you're basically like providing microchip? Like it's all sort of on demand?
So we do demand service. So our residents have to call 48 hours in advance, business hours, to get a trip. And we book them that way. You're welcome.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? All right.
The next entity I will be calling up will be Mecklenburg County Transportation, also known as MTS. I believe Macy Jones will be speaking in behalf of Richard Buchanan. Macy.
I have to show me where.
Right here.
Thank you. Good evening. I am here on behalf of Richard Buchanan, our Senior Social Service Manager. I am actually the other manager for the transportation program. I believe, and you have to, I apologize, trying to go through these slides. Let's see. Is that it? Yes, okay. I am not that tech savvy when it comes to a few things here, so I do apologize. So I believe this information was also shared at the TCC committee meeting. And like Teresa shared, we not too long ago received our direct recipient award letter, probably a little before Union County and Iredell. It is a process, and what you see here as far as our federal fiscal, speaking of, hey, Richard is here. You want to come join me?
Certainly.
Great.
Realized there was a Charlotte football club game tonight.
Yes. So with our, here we go. With our federal fiscal funds for our urbanized funding, we are using or have used our funds, our capital assistance, a little over 1.5 million. And you can see our safety and security is a little over 5,000. For our use of our capital assistance, most of our systems throughout the state has experienced probably a delay in getting a replacement fleet of vehicles. We are no different. We are also needing to replace our aging fleet. Currently, we have, I believe, 9 vehicles on order. And in the future fiscal year, I believe we will have maybe 3 or 6 coming. Excuse me. Also, our capital cost of third-party contracting is primarily for our trips on our operating side with our contracted vendors. That's where a majority of our funds are being utilized. And then also you see with the safety and security related expenses. Do you want to move forward?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right, move that. You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
We do not have any unobligated funds. We do have the 2023 funds, which is federal fiscal year. For us, it'll be our local fiscal year 25, 1.7 million. That application is under development. The 2021 year, we have 1.5 million or thereabouts. That is currently under FTA review. 2020 for our 5307, a little over 1.2 million. That is approved and executed, and we're currently doing the drawdowns for that through the FTA system. The pandemic related funds, Carissa and ARPA, those applications are currently under review. A little under $1 million for the CRSSA application, and the ARP application is a little under 3.9 million is currently under FTA review. For our FY 2023 federal fiscal year, our local fiscal year 25, we will be doing capital assistance again, a little under 1.7 million. Unfortunately, we have exceeded 100 vehicles in our fleet when you count our vendors. So we're no longer able to use that money for operating expenses. So it has to all go to capital now. So we do that with the 1.675848 for capital assistance, safety and security, the 29,850. We are able to pay some of the operating expenses by moving that capital cost third-party contracting to what we do with our vendor work. They build in the cost of what it costs to operate a fleet on the vendor side. So we are able to shift some of that money to actually providing trips for our customers. Any questions?
It's complicated. Any questions all the way around? All right.
And once again, I do really apologize for underestimating the traffic in Charlotte tonight.
It was a great tag team effort, so you did well. Thank you.
She's an excellent person.
She gets a day off tomorrow, so.
Our next agency we're going to be speaking on will be Iredell County Area Transit, also known as ICATS. Brad Johnson.
Thank you. Good evening. Again, I'm Brad Johnson, the Transit Director for ICATS in Iredell County. We are a kind of a unique system in that with Statesville, as Bob was showing in his presentation, is no longer in the urbanized area. That has affected how we will do operations going forward, but it did not affect our 23 allotment of funds. We're in the same boat as Teresa is in, with, becoming a direct recipient of FTA. So that's what our unobligated balance is. You can see here for 23, 22, and 21. We were awarded, or we were, congratulated as a new recipient in January. And it's just been, the process. They did not want you to start, in the middle of a grant cycle. Our 20, and we will submit our 2020 application in December, once everything is opened up and back ready to go. We are under that 100 vehicle threshold, and so we can use funds for operating. The 464,223 comes from a federal formula table 3A. The safety and security, you're required to do at least 1%. We're doing the 20,000, and then 400,000 will be for capital, and then the 80,000 will be for preventative maintenance, totaling our little $9.5 million or 9,500. Any questions?
A lot of numbers. All right, any questions around the table? Great. All right, thank you.
Our next agency that will be coming up will be Charlotte Area Transit System, also known as CATS. I believe Chad Howe will be speaking on the behalf of Crystal Gibbons. Chad?
Good evening, board members. I am again Chad Howell. I am the Chief Financial Officer for CATS. And today I'll be speaking with you about how we've allocated some of our prior year fundings and current year. So from 2019 to 2022, CATS has received about $265 million, including $190.7 million in COVID relief grants across all 7 of the areas outlined here. I'll drill down a little bit more in the future slide and talk about some of the specific things, large areas that we've spent some of our funding on. As of today, we have no prior year. All $265 million have been obligated from prior years. So this is our current year in federal fiscal year 23. It's estimated CATS will receive about $22.8 million. Again, across the 7 areas. Some of the funding priorities that we've so from 2019 through 2023, particularly in the most recently, we've worked on bus replacements, be it either hybrid or battery electrics, STS buses. We've also gotten a little behind in that because of the ability to order, the ability of the manufacturers, but we're hoping to make up for that in the near future. Various safety improvements, and something you're going to see particularly in the next the last little bit in the next year or so, is a lot of the money going toward preventive maintenance for bus, rail, in our facilities. Questions?
Any questions for our presenter? Anyone? Got any comments? No? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right, appreciate that. A lot of dollars out there, that's for sure.
So the next entity that needs to provide a report, but in lieu of providing a report, is the city of Rock Hill, and also who does business for Rock Hill Fort Mill area transportation for the South Carolina portion of the Charlotte urban area. So they sent written correspondence on August 24th, 2023, that they were going to provide the report, basically specifying their activities from FY 2017 through 22. Also CARES funds, ARP funds involving 5307 in lieu of a presentation. It was distributed to the TCC members on the 7th of September, and it was also sent out. So if you need a copy of it, feel free to forward that to all. Thank you.
All right, any other questions on us? A lot of numbers to consider. Certainly, there's a lot of dollars out there that are available. Everybody, I'm sure, understands every aspect of all what they just said. So it's very complicated. So thank you for all the work, and thank you for all being here to present the results today. And certainly wish you luck in getting everything you want. Appreciate that. Craig,
one of the presenters said something about there's a requirement for 20% of certain number of funds to be dedicated to safety. Did I,
1%.
what is it?
1%.
1%. That's
Oh,
1%.
1%. Thank you.
All right, great. All right, Terrell, thank you very much. There's
Right.
no other questions, right? Yeah, details. That's great. All right, appreciate that. All right, next up, Miss Judy, you're gonna march up to the front again. This is the public engagement summary, and this again is informational.
Thank you, Chair Pappas. It's not very often I get to come up twice in one night, so thanks for letting me join you
Have more
again.
time, I mean,
Each year we give a quick update on our previous fiscal year's public engagement. And so just highlighting what we did last year and what some of our initiatives are for this year. There's our team there, a bunch of smiling faces. And then, of course, it just changed recently. We had 2 people that have started in the last 2 weeks. You probably met them out front earlier, and you're gonna get to meet them again in a few minutes. So, but we're glad to have Will and Paul join our team. Just more expertise to help all of you with your jurisdictions and all of the work we do with our transportation planning for the region. So some of our highlights last year, many of you remember we had the appreciation celebration recognizing a lot of our plans and initiatives that had been adopted, and they're in the implementation phase now. We resumed full-time in person for all of our board and TCC meetings. I happen to like that. I'm one that likes to be able to chat with people and say hi. We are continuing to offer remote updates for people that are still having remote meetings for their organizations. What's nice about that is we actually can reach more people because we can, I can be at work one day and do a quick meeting with somebody remotely and then back to work, and you just get more done that way, and we're able to actually reach more people, and they share more through their Facebook feeds and other things like that as well. So CRTPO was well represented at state and national conferences last year. Staff gave 13 different presentations in a couple different states. So we have a lot of good work that a lot of people want to hear about. So it's been nice to be able to share that. And as always, we continue to increase our social media presence. Our annual report is hot off the presses. All of you have one that was at your seat when you came in tonight. So please take that with you, share it with folks, let us know what you think of it. We always want to hear back if it's meeting your needs. And I have a stack here that I'm actually going to put right here at the table with Brian. Sorry. If anybody wants to take an extra with them tonight, or if any of our guests didn't get one when you came in, feel free to take that on your way out tonight. We also have here this same graphic is in the annual report with our reach that we had last year with social media. We met with over 5,000 community members through different public meetings, newsletters, webinars, things like that. So the education sessions, we had 25 of those last year. That's really important. That's when we share presentations with you guys, with our transportation staff, and with our TCC members. And that also includes when we go out to your boards and do like a CRTPO 101. And that's something we're always willing to do. So if that's something any of you want, just give me a call or let Neil know, and we'll get that set up and come out. Some of the member benefits, Jennifer shared with you tonight about the discretionary grants program. We had a couple different workshops about that this year, including a full day where we had over 70 participants, and we had specialists from NCDOT and FTA in several different, or FHWA, I'm sorry, several different categories, teaching us how to apply for funds, how the process works, how you document everything. So that was a big help. And like I said, the 101 presentations that we really like to do. And something we started new last year was quarterly PIO meetings. That's where I schedule a meeting with somebody on your staff in your town or city that is your communications specialist. I know a couple of our jurisdictions don't have a specific public information officer. In those cases, we generally include the town clerk or something to join us and, work on ways that we can help share information and learn from each other's experience, what works, what doesn't, trying to reach as many of our residents as we can. Beyond 77 Task Force was a big initiative that we were working on this past year. So you can read about that in the annual report. And we recently had an implementation meeting where we're focusing on which strategies and solutions to move forward. And so you'll be hearing more about that coming up. I think you actually might be getting an update next month on that project. So some of our initiatives for next year, the orientation, which I already mentioned to you. So I'm collecting those cards when you guys leave tonight, and you'll be getting an email to let us know what dates might work for you in January. We are working on the P 7.0 prioritization. You've heard a lot about that over the last few months as we were approving projects to go on that list to be submitted. We're going to be tracking our performance measures through the public involvement plan. Again, CRTPO 101s, that's how we get out there and really teach people about what we do. And you'll be hearing about the 2055 MTP kickoff later this year as well. Then some of our plans and project initiatives, the strategic plan, you heard Brian talk about that earlier. There is going to be a lot more coming with that. The congestion management process update is underway. There's a task force that's met 2 or 3 times. And so Kendall gave you information about that a couple months ago. He'll be back once they move forward more with that process. For the SEAM advancement study, Curtis actually just had a 2-day charrette kickoff last week on that. The transit providers work group also had their kickoff on that last week. And the Beyond 77 coalition development and program implementation is underway right now. The P 7.0 tip development is going to continue. And again, the MTP kickoff will be happening. So I think, and that's what we have going on coming up.
That's great.
Any questions?
Any questions around the table? I think it's, something to recognize the amount of work that this staff puts together to bring our existence into the forefront of everybody around us. So it's certainly along the last 4 years here that I've seen, it's definitely been improving every year. So I want to say thank you to all of the staff that engages with this, and certainly Judy for heading that up for us. So
Great.
it's appreciated. Thank you. I will move down to some upcoming agenda items. Mr. Burke, you're up.
The October 18th CRTPO board agenda is anticipated to include the following items. So for action, we'll have the planning area boundary adoption, the transfer of planning responsibilities, memorandum of agreement, and TIP amendments. And then in terms of information reports, we'll have the city of Charlotte's has 2 functional classification requests, an update on Beyond 77, an update on Coordinate Our Future / Community Viz, and then an update on the board request of the I-77 mobility partners, which Chair Pappas will cover under the next agenda item. And then I have 2 quick announcements before turning it over to Bob for an announcement or 2. So just a reminder to complete the orientation topic form that you all had in front of your seats this evening. You can leave it on your table or you can hand it to one of the staff. That'll be really helpful for us as we develop our program for the 2024 orientation. And then as Judy mentioned, you'll be receiving an email from me tomorrow with some potential dates for the 2024 CRTPO orientation in the first 2 weeks of January of next year. So we'd like you all to complete that doodle poll with your availability by next Friday, the 29th. And then we will be able to announce the date for the 2024 orientation at the October 18th board meeting. So you all can get it on your calendars early. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Bob.
All right, thank you, Neil. And this might be a little redundant, since I think many of you have already met Will and Paul, but I'm really pleased tonight to introduce you to our two newest staff members, Will Snyder and Paul Benton. If you don't mind, maybe just stand up a little bit there real quick so everyone can see you. They just, I won't ask you to say anything, so I won't put you on the spot like that, but Will joined us on September 11th, so just a couple of weeks ago. He's our associate planner, most recently worked for TransPro Consulting as an analyst, and very recently got his master's from Ball State in Indiana, new to Charlotte, so we're delighted to have Will join us. Paul, a little closer. He started with us on Monday. He is our senior transportation and planning engineer, has a lot of experience in both the public and the private sector. In terms of a little closer, he joins us on the 8th floor from the 6th floor, where he was working for CDOT for about 5 years as their senior engineer in the planning and design division. So I'm really pleased, particularly in a time when hiring is not easy, as many of you probably know from your own businesses and your own employers, to have two such talented people join our staff. It's a real treat to have them and to get to know them over the past couple of weeks. And I know they'll be contributing a lot to the organization and and all of your communities. So welcome, Paul and Will. And then one other kind of HR related item, I did want to mention that we have recently promoted Jennifer to project manager in recognition of the absolutely superb efforts she has made with the discretionary grants program, and has really made that program into a premier effort, I think, across MPOs throughout North Carolina. She has done great work on that, and probably that promotion was very much long overdue. And I know she'll be continuing to support your communities. Many of them have relied upon Jennifer every day for support for their programs or their projects that have been funded through our discretionary program. So congratulations to Jennifer on her promotion, much deserved. Thank you.
Awesome. That's great news. I appreciate that, and congratulations over there. So appreciate that a lot. I'm going to slide over a little bit. We've got everything covered there for you, Neil.
Yes.
Slide over to Miss Lisa for just a moment here.
Oh, great, thank you. I had asked. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, dual mics. I'd ask Tony Lathrop if he would give us a update from the NCDOT board. I happened to stumble onto a video that he had put out with a quick little update, and I said, gee, I think we need that at our CRTPO board meeting. I think that would be helpful for everybody to kind of know a report from the board. So if you would like, he's prepared immensely to just off the cuff give us that update. Mr. Lathrop.
Thanks. I'm prepared because she said something to me about it about 15 minutes ago. So I'm the finance chair, and I've been that for over 6 years, and so I'm neck deep in that piece of it. And as you all may know, in the last couple of years, they changed the statute, so the board has a fiduciary duty now to look over the board's finances. So I talked to the CFO a lot about that. We also have to do a spend plan now, and we do that at the beginning of every fiscal year, which we've done for the current fiscal year, July 1 to June 30th. And we'll be updating that as soon as we get the budget. And I have heard this afternoon that they have a deal, I think, and they're going to vote tomorrow and Friday on that, knock on wood. So at our recent meeting, we did our usual monthly project approvals, and we have a new CFO. Our CFO, Stephanie King, retired, and so we have a new one, Mark Newsom, but he's very experienced in state government, and NCDOT's accounting and systems are different because we have projects that go over a number of years, so we carry money over. But he's hit the ground running, and he's good. Our cash, we look at our cash position every month, and that's robust. The combined, as you all probably know, we have a highway fund, which is mostly for maintenance, and a highway trust fund, which is mostly for CapEx. And the combined balance in cash of those two is just north of 2 billion. And I mean, that's kind of like saying, you know, you've got $100,000 in the bank, but you've got a $2 million mortgage. You know, so that money is spoken for at least 4 times. It's committed out in out years. I think it's about 25% of our commitments. Let me see what else I've got. We had it every year in August, we go to the federal government to get what's called the August redistribution, because the federal government, a lot of states don't use all their obligation spending authority from the federal government. It's hard to believe that they're essentially leaving money on the table. So we go get it. And DOT is really good at that. So we got north of 200 million of federal spending authority, but we bake that in because we know it's going to be there. But it's always good to go after that and get that. We got a great update on the state's growth and the impact of that on revenues in the coming years that I won't bore you with, but we'll get some organic growth, but not enough to keep up with our growth that we have, that we're blessed with. A lot of states would kill for, but that's just how it is. For those of you who need good bedtime listening, you can find links to our meetings online. And we also dedicated the interchange at 77 and 40 north of Statesville for Judge Bob Collier, who was chairman of the Board of Transportation for a number of years and dedicated public servant, and is still with us. Couldn't come to the meeting, but a number of his family members came, and I've known him and his family for 40 years, going back through different ways. And so that was a well-deserved honor. And that interchange is one of the more impressive ones I've ever seen. And it's certainly critical being at 40 and 77. So that's it in a nutshell.
Great. Any questions? Of course, Mr. Mayor Higdon
John?
has a question.
I'll try to answer any questions.
Quick question, Tony. How do you see the recent change that the legislature made in the appointments of the board? How's that going to affect us?
Good question. I don't know. I guess I hope when the music stops, I still have a seat. We'll see about that. It's way above my pay grade. So what John's talking about is the legislature has filed a bill to essentially flip the appointments. Right now, the legislature has 6 and the governor has the 14 division, including this one. And the bill would just reverse that. So the legislature appointed all the division seats and the governor had 6 at large. So that's been passed. The governor has vetoed it. It hasn't been overridden yet. I'm not going to speak for the legislature about what's going to happen next, but there's a process for that. And then if that happens, then there'll maybe be some other things. So that I'm not sure, might have to ask the governor what's going to happen next. But I would love to stay on. I've been on for 6 years plus, and I've loved serving this region, but we'll see. I don't know if that answered your question.
We would love for you to stay on as well. So
thanks.
Absolutely. And if that happens, we'd like to have you report once a month to us, every month, just a little blurb if you could. 30 seconds, as you said earlier, but this is 4 minutes. So
sorry, tried to keep it short.
That's all right. No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And we'll work on that one. I'm going to slide over a little bit, just some updates to you guys on the I-77 questions that we all submitted through DOT to Mobility Partners. So that is in the works right now. It is multi-layered. There are different divisions, both certainly in DOT and in Mobility Partners. They are consolidating all their information right now, so it isn't all in one spot. And so they are giving reports back to their leadership team. So I spoke with David Garcia this afternoon to get some more updates on that, and spoke with Mr. Knife as well. And so here's the tentative plan right now. And I think that we can make that is by next month's meeting, before next month's meeting, we should have those answers back to you. in time for you to review them before the meeting. And then we will put that on as an agenda item to discuss it. So we'll allow some time to go over all your questions after your review, if there's any more. Certainly, both parties, DOT and mobility, are very, very willing and open to come to us at any time. So once we go through that meeting in October, if it is necessary to have a small panel with DOT and mobility, then they are more than willing to come and share with us. So nobody's running away from it. That's the good part. They're providing the information freely and voluntarily. They want to. And so I think that's certainly a good sign, but that's the tentative process right now that we're going through. So I just want to update you on that. And hopefully we'll have all the answers we need. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to any other board member comments for the good of the board, good of the group. Anybody? All right, you guys must want to go home. So, yeah, with that, I'm going to look for a motion to adjourn then. All right, so move second. Craig, you're ready, right? Second, you got that? All right, great. All right, good night, everybody. Appreciate it.
Resolutions for you to sign.
Okay.
Consent agenda.
Okay.